Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rossy Rivera, and today I'm sharing how to make this little figurine of Virgin Mary as part of our Advent Calendar 2022 gift. She is the Mother of Jesus, and she represents fidelity and love to God. I hope you like this project. Let's get started. To begin, we are going to use our reference template and get the cutouts out from it. Remember, this is completely free on our website, available in English and with inches and centimeters as units. You can find it again on my website, rossyrivera.com, completely free. It's a small gift for this beautiful Christmas and holiday season. So I just cut out the face, the hair, and that circle you saw there. And now for the face, we're going to need 1/4 of a teaspoon. And for the hands, we're going to need 1/8 of a teaspoon. So we're starting with the face, and I'm kneading the clay. This is called porcelain clay. The recipe is also here on the channel. So I'm just forming that into a circle. And then I'm just trying to get that as big enough to fit the little cutout on it, so I can use that as a reference. So you can see I'm just going over this cutout and the lines we already have on it to highlight her features and sort of transfer that onto our clay piece. Now we're going to shape the mouth. And then sort of getting that mouth shape and the lips. Starting with the bottom lip. And then the top lip just by lifting it. Marking the sides of her mouth again. And then just smoothing everything out. Just like this. Now we're going to place the nose, and for this I'm just getting a very tiny piece of clay, and I'm going to place it right above the mouth, just leaving a little bit of space. I'm marking the nostrils and then just blending everything together. Now we're going to paint the eyelashes and the eyebrows. But before I move on to that, I'm just going to add some shading and highlights. So basically like a bit of little contouring or makeup on her face. Highlighting the cheeks. A little bit of her mouth. And then a little bit around the eyelids before we go in and paint the features themselves, just like this. Now we're going to use some brown paint. These are acrylic paint, and I'm getting brown, then a brown mix with a little bit of orange, and then black paint. Make sure the black paint is watered down so it's easier to glide it on our piece. So now I'm just getting my tools. You can also use a toothpick for this, and I'm just highlighting the eye sockets a bit, and then going back in and highlighting those eyelids as well. Now with this lighter shade, that's sort of orangey, I'm just going in on the eyelid slash eyelash, adding a little bit of color. Trying to keep them both even. And then adding a top line, just going from the center to the outside. Now with the darker brown, I'm going to paint the eyebrows. So just added the right one, now the left one, just like this. And now using our black paint, remember this has to be very watery, we're just gonna go in and add the eyelashes. I'm adding one single line in black and then just adding small eyelashes to the outside of our eyelids, making them very small and gentle. Once we're done, it's going to look like this, and now we're just going to let this dry. And just before we let it fully dry, I'm going to add a little bit of paint to her lips. So I'm mixing orange and a light pink to get a very soft color. Adding a little bit of water so I can mix that in. I'm blending both shades together. And in the end we get sort of a peach or coral tone. And I'm just gonna use that paint and add it to her lips. Just like this. I'm adding a little bit more, and that's it. Now we can let this dry. We're going to continue with the hands, and again we're using 1/8 of a teaspoon of cold porcelain clay with this. We're gonna make these the same size as the angel's hands. So I'm just going to cut that into 4 pieces. And one of these pieces is where we're going to get both hands out of. So now I shape that into a ball, thin it down the middle. And we have 2 sort of circles on the outside. So it's thicker on the outside, on both ends. And then I'm just flattening them and making them very small so they're proportionate to the rest of her body. Now that we have them both ready, I'm going to go in with my scissors and I'm going to start getting those fingers, the definition in there. So making one single triangle cut to get the thumb out, and then making 3 more cuts to get the other 4 fingers. Now I just rounded them out a little bit so they don't look sort of jagged around the edges. And then adding a little pressure to the bottom of the hand so we get that palm. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other hand. Once we're done with both, we're going to pull away from the middle so they separate on their own. Now we're going to continue with the body. For the robe, we're going to need 1/2 of a teaspoon plus 1/4 of a teaspoon. We're gonna mix both of them together, form them into a ball, and then I'm going to form a drop shape. We're doing the same thing we did for the angel's body. The only difference is that in this case the figure is kneeling down. I'm going to keep stretching that out, making it a little bit longer than the size it has now. And I'm using the figure on our template as a reference, and if you notice, I'm leaving 1 extra centimeter from the shape I already have marked there from the drawing. Now I'm just going to flatten down the bottom just so we can have a reference. Now I'm making a hole at the bottom just to make it wider, just like this. And now we're going to roll down the bottom part. We're sort of mimicking the calves like we do when we make legs. So I'm just adding that little curve there. And now we're going to bend this area so it looks like she's kneeling down. And now the top area, I'm just going to bend it backwards a little bit No, I'm just adding some lines to really get that definition and show that she's kneeling. And at the front, I'm separating the legs very lightly and then just blending that out. Now on the sides, I'm going to start adding the folds for the robe. We can do this with the tool I was holding right there, or we can also use a toothpick, just like this. And also adding them to the top part, the top piece, highlighting that fold at the knee, just like this. And then the lowest part, the back part there, I'm just going to make it very, very thin, just like this. Now just going over any other lines I need to go over again. And then at the top, adding some more folds as well. These can also be done with the toothpick if we don't have the tool. So either way works fine. Now we're also going to add some of that leg definition to the top part at on the back, the top side of the bottom part. Just like this. And we're just trying to make sure we get that look as when someone is kneeling. So the legs are slightly visible. We get all the folds on the fabric and all that kind of thing. And there we go. Now we have that illusion that she's kneeling down. Now we're going to place the half of a toothpick into our piece so it can hold the head in place, just like this. So I just put the toothpick in and then make sure I didn't lose the shape of my figure. And now we're going to make, wait, I just realized I need to add a little bit more definition here. So I just added that in there. And it looks like this. And now we can make the other part of her robe. So I'm measuring half of a tablespoon of blue clay, again called porcelain clay, in that size of a circle, and 1/8 of a teaspoon for the arms or sleeves. So I'm just getting that half of a tablespoon and I'm going to stretch that out until I can fit the circle cut up you just saw there. And I cut around it and it looks like this circle piece now here. And now I'm just smoothing down the edges so it doesn't look, so the edge doesn't look jagged. I'm trying to get that smooth look. And it doesn't need to be circular. I'm just using that as a reference. So I'm just adding those lines, stretching that out towards the outside. And now that we have that ready, I'm just going to add some sort of ruffles to the outside. So I just made that on one side and on the other side, just like this. Once we're done with that, we're going to go in and shade it. I'm using my blue eyeshadows for this. Just to highlight the shapes. So you notice I'm using a slightly darker shade than the one we use on the clay. Just like this. Now we're going to place it on the back part of our figurine. just like this, wrapping it around the top. If it's too long, we can cut it out, cut off the excess, but if it looks good, it's only a matter of adjusting it at the back. And we're just trying to make sure the front part is still visible so we can see that she's kneeling down. Now for the arms, I did measure them in blue, but in my case, I'm gonna make them in pink since I'm using the same color as I would call it the dress. So that bottom layer, the pink layer. So I'm getting the pink clay as well for that. And I just cut that in half, form that into a drop, adding a hole at the bottom of that, and then stretching it out so it's wider. So we have very wide sleeves. Just like this. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other one, and then now that we have both ready, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on our mat. And then the longer part, I'm going to keep it towards the bottom and add the glue and then glue it into place on our figurine, just like this. And then using my tools to make sure they're properly attached together, trying to get that sort of cape covering over the sleeves. Now I'm going to add the hand, so also just dabbing it in a bit of glue and placing it on the sleeve. And doing the same thing for the other one. As you notice, I changed up the order, but it works just the same. And then placing it on the body. Just trying to make it very evident that the sleeve is the one that's that size, not the arms, to get that sort of flowy sleeve look. Now for the top part here, I'm getting a little bit of white called porcelain clay, and we're going to make the collar on her outfit. And for the neck, I'm just getting a little bit of clay in a skin color of our choice, placing it around the top of the toothpick to make sure it's properly covered. And then with that white color, I stretch that out into a long string, and then I'm just wrapping it around the neck, which is made, starting at the front and meeting both ends at the back. Making sure we adjust that sort of cape around the arms. And doing the same thing on both sides. Just like this. Lifting the arms if you want them to be farther away from the body. And now on that sort of cape, again adding sort of the detailing that is underneath it. So like the arms and the extra folds. Scrunching up that fabric a bit. If we need to go back over any areas, we can do that as well since the clay is still fresh. Just like this, and now we have the base for our little doll. Now we're going to add the head or the face for now. Ideally, this bottom part of the body will be completely dry, but you can also work on it. We just have to be a little bit more careful if it still hasn't dried. So just added a little bit of glue there. And I'm adding a little bit of an inclination to the front. So it looks like she's facing down. Now I'm gonna get brown clay, half a teaspoon of brown clay, so we can cover the back part. So again, half a teaspoon to cover the back of the head and the hair. So I'm just kneading that thoroughly. Form it into a ball and then making it a little bit concave so you can wrap around the back of the head, adding a little bit of glue and then just positioning it in place just like this. Adding the hair strands just as a little bit of detail all around, and also at the back just like this. It's also going to help it glue to help it stick together to the back of the head itself. Now I don't know if this is going to be noticeable at the end, but we're going to make the ears already, so in case they are visible, they will look just fine. So I'm just making 2 small balls in our skin color clay, the skin color of our choice, and then placing them right next to the eyes and adding a small indentation there just for that ear detail, and then pushing it towards the back just like this. Now we're going to cut the other piece on the 1 teaspoon of clay we have on the side. Once we're done with that, we're going to add some texture, just following the guidelines from our template cutout. Following these curves, adding the hair strands in here. On both sides, and then we're just gonna soften that up just like this. Remember to soften down the edge as well and just like make that thinner so it can wrap around the front of the face better. Now also making sure to press down on the middle to secure it to the head, and then lowering the sides slowly. In my case, I'm gonna leave this part in front of the body and then just adjusting it right there around the shoulder. I just realized we definitely did end up covering the ears, but that's okay. Now I'm just adding some thinner strands onto the hair, since this is what's going to be noticeable once we add the veil. Just like this. Now we're going to move on to the veil using that same size we used for the robe, and we're going to cut that on white clay. Once we cut the circle here on that half a tablespoon of white cold porcelain clay, we're just going to round the edges there so they're not as sharp and they're a little bit thinner. So they're very, very thin. It doesn't matter if we lose that round circle shape. What matters is that we get a very detailed and neat work in the end. So I'm just using Vaseline to continue thinning down those sides, and so that the clay doesn't dry out. Just like this. Just doing that all around. Once it looks the way we need it to, I'm just going to place it over the back of our measuring spoon to get that hollow shape like it's going to be on the back of the head, since this is the veil. And I'm just lifting the sides, adding those folds right here, so it looks like natural draping. I'm just pulling it out as needed, like we're just making hair as well. Like it falls down, it's being affected by gravity. Now I'm using half a teaspoon since it's smaller in this other fold on the other side, just like this. Now we're going to add a little bit of glue at the top just to make sure it can help secure it in place. And I'm just trying to keep that as natural looking as possible and flowy, which is why I'm not gluing all of it in place. I'm just wrapping it around there and then making adjustments as I go. Adding some more ruffles around the arms so they fit in nicely. Just like this. Getting the shape of her head, and it's really like a veil, just wrapping around. Now once we're done, it's going to look like this, and I'm just going to go in here and add some lines to make it look sort of like there's a rope or some sort of belt or cord around her waist, and just adding some of those folds that the cord will create, and then going in with the pink eyeshadow to add some highlights and shades, make sure the details stand out, as you can see right here. Now I'm going to go in and add some gold acrylic paint, only in this area right here around the collar or neck. Then very carefully around the blue robe or a cape, just like this. And then around the sleeves as well, right on the edge. And I'm going to do this for the other side too. Once we're done, it's going to look like this. And as you notice, I only added it to the blue area, so it looks like this, not the other pieces. But of course, it's up to you if you want to add it all around. And now we have our little gift for today, for day 6, as part of our Advent calendar. I hope you're liking all the projects so far. My name is Rossy. Thank you for joining me. Many blessings.